At the very beginning of the story, we see a cunning thief named Morris. He has been caught by the police for robbing a bank, and now he's being transferred to the world's most secure prison, Alcatraz, where he is sentenced to spend the rest of his life. Alcatraz isn't just any prison. It's built on a small island right in the middle of the ocean, which means even if a prisoner somehow manages to escape the prison walls, there's no way he can cross the endless water surrounding it. That's why Alcatraz held the reputation of being the most secure prison in the world, a place reserved only for the most dangerous criminals alive. But soon, this very reputation was about to be shattered, because entering the prison was none other than Frank Morris, a notorious thief who had escaped from several prisons before. Yet this time, Morris felt uneasy. This jail was unlike any other, its security far beyond what he had ever faced. Still, one thing was clear: Morris had no intention of spending his life here. From the very moment he stepped inside, his mind began working on ways to escape. As part of the prison protocol, Morris was searched thoroughly from head to toe, and then locked inside a cold, dark cell. A guard mocked him, saying, "Welcome to Alcatraz." And from here, the real story begins. Suddenly, a loud bell rings, and all the cell doors open automatically. The officers command the inmates to step out. The rules inside this prison are brutally strict. Inmates must follow hygiene orders, return to their cells on time, and obey every regulation without question. Wearing the same dull uniforms, the prisoners line up for breakfast. In the cafeteria, Morris sits near an inmate named Litmus. Morris complains that he didn't get a fork and wonders how he's supposed to eat his noodles. Litmus snaps back, "This isn't your home. Just eat whatever you're given." At that moment, a dangerous prisoner named Wolf starts provoking Morris. Everyone in Alcatraz despised Wolf. He bullied other inmates and had several charges of assault and abuse. He was one of the most feared men in the prison. Later, Litmus quietly asks Morris to share some of his food. Morris doesn't hesitate and slides his plate over. But when Morris secretly peeks under the table, he notices Litmus isn't eating at all. Instead, he's feeding the scraps to a rat. That night, a guard escorts Morris to the warden's office. The warden, a strict and merciless man, looks him in the eye and says, "I know you're intelligent, but none of that matters here. Many like you have come and gone. No one has ever escaped Alcatraz. Inmates here follow rules to the letter. You're allowed visitors only once every 2 months, and only if I'm in a good mood. Don't even think about running. If you try, you'll be torn into pieces." Morris, pretending to be obedient, replies, "Sir, with you in charge, who would even dare think of escaping?" But deep down, from day one, Morris's mind was already planning his way out. During the conversation, he slyly swipes a nail cutter from the warden's desk. Such a tiny object seemed useless, but Morris knew even the smallest tool could change everything in a place like Alcatraz. Back in his cell, he carefully hides the nail cutter inside a Bible. The next morning, in the bathroom, Wolf tries to harass Morris again, but this time, Morris fights back. He beats Wolf so badly that the entire prison takes notice. From that day, Morris earned respect, or rather, fear, from the other inmates. Soon after, Morris is given a job in the prison library. There, he meets an older prisoner nicknamed English. Sentenced to life for murdering 2 men, English had already spent decades in Alcatraz. He knew every inch of the prison and kept up with all its secrets. He even knew about Morris's fight with Wolf earlier that morning. English hands Morris a few books, instructing him to deliver them to the other cells. In the open yard, prisoners are seen passing time with games. That's where Morris meets another inmate named Doc, an artist lost in his paintings. Doc was a quiet, humble man who had been here for years. Painting was his only escape from madness. He often said that in a place like Alcatraz, anyone could lose their mind, but his art kept him sane. Morris asks him why he painted flowers on his canvas when none were on his shirt. Doc smiles faintly and replies, "Because happiness exists only in my paintings, not in my life." As Morris looks upward, he spots English watching from above. When Morris tries to approach him, English's men block his way, but English signals them to let Morris pass. Sitting down with him, Morris wastes no time and speaks his heart. "I need your help to escape this place." Hearing this, English burst out laughing. "Son, this isn't just a prison, it's our graveyard. The only way to leave Alcatraz is in a coffin. Even if you somehow climbed those massive prison walls, slipped past the deadly forces, and by some miracle escaped the hundreds of armed guards inside Alcatraz, the ocean would still trap you. The endless waves made sure no one ever left this place alive." That's why English warned Morris not to waste his energy. "Serve your time quietly. At least you'll stay alive." But Morris was determined. He wasn't ready to give up, no matter how impossible it seemed. He had already made up his mind. He would escape this prison. That very night, An officer informed Morris that from the next day, he'd be assigned carpentry work with a wage of 50 cents an hour. Morris instantly agreed. He knew that in the workshop, he might find tools that could help him carve out his freedom. The following morning, Morris casually asked Litmus if there was any way out of Alcatraz. Litmus smirked and said, "Oh, that's easy. Every cell has an air vent. Through that, and maybe you'll reach the roof. Who knows, you might crawl through that, and maybe you'll reach the roof. Who knows, you might get lucky." Saying this with a mocking smile, Litmus walked away. Just then, Doc rushed over to warn Morris. Wolf was coming his way. In a flash, Wolf attacked him with a knife. Morris quickly wrapped his coat around his arm and fought back with all his strength. As they wrestled, a guard rushed in to stop them, but Wolf slashed the guard too. The situation spiraled out of control, and the watchtower guard fired a warning shot. Only then did the fight come to an end. Morris realized something crucial. The prison wasn't just locked down from the inside, there were sharp eyes watching from above as well. From now on, he would need to notice every single detail about Alcatraz. Both Morris and Wolf were dragged to the dreaded D block, the punishment cells. Prisoners feared this place because it meant nights of darkness and relentless torture. Before being shoved inside, Wolf hissed at Morris, "Your death will come from my hands." That night, Morris endured brutal punishments that left him battered and weak. After 2 whole weeks locked away in darkness, he was finally returned to his regular cell. There, Litmus used his pet rat to deliver Morris a tiny note that read, "Welcome back, Morris." Soon after, a new prisoner named Charlie was assigned to the cell right next to Morris. The two quickly became friends, and Morris even introduced him to the other inmates. Around the same time, the warden began conducting surprise inspections of every prisoner's cell. When he reached Doc's cell, he noticed dozens of paintings stacked neatly. Among them was even a portrait of the warden himself. For a moment, the warden smiled faintly, but the very next day, he cruelly ordered all of Doc's paintings to be thrown out. This decision broke Doc completely. Painting was his only joy in Alcatraz, his one reason to keep living, and now even that was ripped away from him. Morris tried to comfort him, saying, "They were just paintings, Doc. You can always make new ones." But Doc couldn't recover from the loss. His heart was shattered. The following day, Morris grew worried and warned a guard, "Please keep an eye on Doc. He looks disturbed. I fear he might hurt himself." The guard coldly replied, "Mind your own business." Later, both Morris and Doc were assigned carpentry duty. While no one was watching, Doc quietly slipped something into Morris's pocket. Moments later, in a shocking act, he called a guard over, grabbed the carpentry axe, and chopped off 3 of his own fingers. Screaming in pain, he said, "If I can't paint with these fingers, I don't need them at all." Guards quickly rushed him away. Morris then checked his coat and found a single flower, the same one Doc had painted earlier. It was as if Doc was leaving behind a message. "They've stolen my happiness, but maybe you can still find yours." Morris picked up Doc's severed fingers, placed them in a small box, and handed them to a guard. With a chilling tone, he said, "Take these to your warden. I'm sure he'll be very pleased." The next day, while sitting quietly in his cell, Morris noticed a cockroach crawl inside the air vent. That's when it hit him. There was a possible escape route hidden within these vents. Just then, English approached and revealed something about Doc. English arrives and explains that Dog had cut off his own fingers because the prison officials had canceled his permission to paint. Out of frustration, he mutilated himself. Hearing this, Morris becomes furious. The next day in the dining hall, the warden asks Morris why he keeps defending Dog. Morris denies it, saying it's nothing like that, and quietly returns to his table. There, he runs into 2 brothers, John and Clarence, and starts talking to them as if they were old friends. In reality, both men had once been part of Morris's old gang in another prison. Now John begins to feel that escaping this place might actually be possible, since both brothers are as sharp-minded as Morris. Soon, the 3 of them start planning their breakout. That afternoon, Charlie's girlfriend comes to visit him, while English's daughter arrives to meet her father. The moment English sees her, his eyes fill with tears. His daughter had grown up so much during his absence, and he regrets not being able to see her childhood. Meanwhile, Charlie's wife tells him that his mother is gravely ill, and that doctors say she won't survive more than a month. Hearing this, Charlie also begins to consider escaping Alcatraz. Just then, a guard interrupts, saying visiting time is over. That night, a worried Charlie approaches Morris and says, "If you're planning an escape, count me in." The next day, Morris, John, Clarence, and Charlie gather to discuss. Morris explains that each cell's air vent connects to the roof. Also, since the prison sits in the middle of a saltwater bay, the walls have weakened over time. He shows them a small nail clipper he's been using to dig into the wall, slowly creating a hole that could lead to the roof. John asks, "But if the guards notice we're not in our cells at night, won't they become suspicious?" Clarence immediately replies, "I have a solution. There's a barber here who knows me well. He can supply us with hair clippings. We'll use them to make fake heads, place them on our pillows, and fool the guards. That way, even if they are on the roof digging, the guards will think they are asleep in bed." Still, one problem remained. Even if they got out, how would they cross the ocean? Morris turns to John and says, "I'll need your help for this. You work in the clothing department. You can get access to the raincoats that are made for guards. Steal a few for me, and we'll stitch them into a raft and life jackets." Charlie eagerly adds, "Give me something to do as well. I want to help." Morris instructs him, "When I dig at the vent, you keep watch for guards. And when it's your turn to dig, I'll guard for you." Everyone agrees to the plan, and that very night, they begin working. But the nail clipper is too small, making it extremely difficult for Morris to chip through the wall. His hands even get bruised, yet he keeps digging bit by bit. The next day at lunch, he tells his friends that he needs a bigger tool, since the nail clipper is too slow. Then, staring at a spoon in his hand, he suddenly gets an idea. He deliberately rubs the spoon against his shoe to make it look dirty, then calls a guard and complains that his spoon is unclean. Other inmates also request new spoons, and the guard doesn't suspect anything. When Morris goes to exchange the spoons, John distracts the guard with conversation, giving Morris a chance to pocket not one, but 2 spoons. Later, back in his cell, English brings him a book. Morris casually asks if there's any welding equipment available inside the prison. English quickly realizes Morris is still obsessed with escaping. He warns him, "I've told you before, your plan will fail. You'll be caught, or worse, you'll die. In all these years, I never once tried escaping because I knew it was impossible. You're too stubborn. Do whatever you want, but don't say I didn't warn you." Morris, however, ignores the warning and prepares to continue with his risky plan. Morris ignores the warning completely. The next day, he asks Litmus for a matchbox, promising that in return, he'll feed Litmus's pet mouse with his own food every day. Since Litmus adored that mouse, he happily agrees. That night, Litmus slips Morris the matches. Using them, Morris removes the handle from the nail clipper, planning to turn it into a small digging tool. He then breaks a spoon, attaches it to the handle, and welds the two together with the help of the flame, creating a sharp, homemade tool. With it, he begins digging around the air vent while Charlie stands guard, ready to whistle if a patrol approaches. But while keeping watch, Charlie dozes off. At that exact moment, a guard shows up. Luckily, English distracts the guard with casual conversation just in time. Hearing voices, Charlie wakes up, but panics and fails to whistle. Instead, he knocks something over, and Morris quickly understands the signal. He covers the vent hole and lies back on his bed. The guard sniffs the air suspiciously and asks, "Why do I smell smoke here?" Morris calmly replies, "Sir, who would dare smoke under your watch? I don't smell anything." Flattered, the guard smiles and leaves. Once he's gone, Morris resumes chiseling out the concrete. Soon, he discovers that the vent is secured with strong screws, which require sharper tools. Whenever he got the chance, Morris secretly disposed of the chipped cement outside. The next day, while working carpentry duty, he spots a sharp metal piece that could cut through screws. He pockets it, but Charlie warns, "The metal detector will catch you. How will you get it through?" With confidence, Morris replies, "Leave that to me." At the gate, the detector goes off. The guard notices the metal in his hand and asks what it's for. Morris smoothly says, "I thought I'd use it to hang clothes." The guard, annoyed, confiscates it, thoroughly checks him, and lets him go. But Morris had already outsmarted them. He had stolen 2 pieces, one obvious and one hidden in his shoe. Later, with the hidden sharp blade, he cuts through the vent grill. Now, it's time for the second phase, crafting dummy heads to trick the guards. Each member takes responsibility. Charlie convinces a guard to give him some paint, pretending he wants to try art. Morris crushes the chipped concrete into powder. John gathers hair clippings from the barber shop. Clarence collects old books and magazines from the library. Combining all these, Morris shapes a realistic dummy head, paints it, and adds hair, making it look frighteningly real. He also designs fake cardboard covers to conceal the dugout tunnel from view. One night, Morris decides to test the escape route alone. He places the dummy head on his bed, pulls the blanket up to the neck, and slips into the tunnel carrying the cardboard cover. Climbing pipes, he reaches the roof. Outside, Charlie keeps watch. On the roof, Morris notices a heavy iron grill blocking the way upward, far beyond his reach. Meanwhile, a guard spots Charlie painting late at night and asks suspiciously, "Why are you painting so late? And why is Morris already asleep?" Charlie nervously explains, "Sir, Morris was exhausted from carpentry today, so he went to bed early. Suddenly, the guard's baton slips from his hand. As he bends down to pick it up, he glimpses Morris's hair in the bed and finds it odd. Charlie freezes in fear, thinking they are caught. The guard even reaches into Morris's cell to touch the head. Just then, Morris, who had quickly returned, responds from bed. "What happened, sir? Admiring my beautiful hair?" Relieved, the guard moves on. Next day, Morris tells his friends that the roof is blocked by a welded grill set at a high spot. He'll need help. John steps up and says, "I finished digging my vent. Tonight, I'll join you." That night, Morris and John reach the roof. John lifts Morris high enough to grab the grill. They discover it's solid iron, completely welded, and the only way to remove it is by cutting with a drill. The following day, during music class, everyone is busy playing instruments. Morris's eyes land on a small fan placed nearby. He immediately realizes he can turn it into a drill machine. He instructs Charlie to smuggle it out. Charlie cleverly hides it inside his instrument box. Guards check the box, but miss the fan, and Charlie successfully delivers it to Morris. After hours of tinkering, Morris transforms the fan into a working drill. That night, Morris and Charlie climb to the roof again and start cutting through the iron rods. The drilling sound is loud, alerting the guards, who begin heading up. But by then, Morris has already cut through one rod, and he switches off the machine. The noise stops, and the guards, assuming it was nothing, return to their posts. Now, the escape path is almost ready. The four men have opened the way to freedom. By now, every path had been opened, and on Tuesday night, they were finally set to attempt the impossible, escaping from Alcatraz, the most secure prison in the world, from where no one had ever broken free. The next day, they met once again inside the movie hall, where the sound of the film drowned out their voices. Morris leaned closer to John and Clarence, whispering, "Are your vents ready? And what about the raincoats for the tubes and life jackets?" The two nodded confidently. Everything was prepared. Their dummy heads were also complete. Now, all that was left was the escape. The following morning, during breakfast, Morris placed the flower Dog had once gifted him on the table. The warden, upon noticing it, cruelly crushed it under his hand. This enraged Litmus, as it was Dog's favorite flower, and Dog himself was no longer alive. Furious, Litmus lashed out at the warden, shouting, "First you killed Dog, and now you can't even leave his last memory alone." But before he could land a blow, Litmus clutched his chest and collapsed, suffering a sudden heart attack. Morris burned with anger at the warden and decided with his friends that very night would be their chance to escape. As midnight approached and the guards' watch weakened, Morris prepared to slip away. English, one of the inmates, handed him a few books. Morris extended his hand, saying, "I want to shake hands with you one last time." English understood that Morris was truly going through with the plan and quietly left. But suddenly, something Morris had never imagined happened. The warden stormed into his cell as if tipped off about the escape. Morris's heart pounded. Months of effort were about to go to waste. Every corner of his cell was searched, but Morris's meticulous planning saved him. Even when guards moved the suitcase covering the tunnel, they found nothing. His perfectly crafted cardboard wall blended flawlessly. Outwitted, the warden left, though he ordered Morris's cell to be changed the next day. That morning, Wolf threatened Morris again, saying, "Tonight is your last night alive." Morris turned to his friends with a smirk. "He's right. Tonight is indeed my last night here." Later, Wolf tried to stab him, but English intervened, restraining Wolf. Deep down, English wanted Morris to succeed. Even if the plan failed, he wished to help. Finally, that night, Morris, John, Clarence, and Charlie slipped through their vents, planning to meet on the roof. Charlie initially agreed, but froze in fear once back in his cell. He backed out while the other three climbed up. They waited for Charlie, but when it became clear he wouldn't come, they carried on without him. Charlie sat in his cell, heart sinking as he realized he had let fear steal away his freedom. Meanwhile, Morris and the brothers dodged searchlights, clung to pipes, and scaled the last prison wall. They dashed to the shoreline, inflating their raincoat raft with all their strength. At last, the two-boat was ready, and the three of them pushed it into the dark waters. Alcatraz's iron reputation was about to shatter. By morning, a guide checked every cell. At first, nothing seemed wrong, until he reached Morris's cell. He pulled the sleeping figure by the hair, only for the head to roll off. It was the dummy. Shock spread across the prison. Sirens wailed. Morris was gone. A massive search began across the prison and the ocean. The warden refused to believe they had escaped, insisting they drowned. Yet deep down, he knew these men were stronger than that. Somewhere beyond the waters, Morris and his friends were breathing the air of freedom. The incident shook the prison system. Within a year, Alcatraz was permanently shut down, its myth of being unbreakable forever destroyed. And with that, this true story-inspired film comes to an end. If you enjoyed this breakdown, don't forget to subscribe to Plot Twist Hub, your home for the most thrilling, untold stories.